You have done a lot of war reporting as well as investigative journalism, right? What's the difference and which one do you prefer? Positives and negatives of
Well, all journalism, it's real journalism, it's investigative journalism.
right?
Sometimes you're investigating things outside the context of the war, and sometimes you're investigating things within the context of the war.
Right.
So it's basically the same job,
Right.
trying to find out as much as you can and go as deep as you can into the subject matter.
Right.
So it's the same thing.
Uh, invest, doing like historical research like you do for Soldiers Don't Go Mad as opposed to actual reporting from the family.
Well, a book is basically a long article. So you just have to do a lot more research and go through more documents, more archives, do more interviews to be able to tell a story at length, which is a great luxury. And often, when you have deadline pressures of daily journalism, you can't do that. You find out as much as you can find out on the day, but you can't rewrite it. It's over. It's published. It's out there, and you go in the next day and do it all over again.
Right.
With a book, you do have the time to go through archives, to meet people, to examine aspects of the story you hadn't thought about before, to make new discoveries. And it's probably a more interesting but less exciting
Right.
activity.
Right. And in your book, you've written about two poets who has impacted a lot mentally, also psychologically as well. And I was wondering, for you personally, has there been a psychological impact covering war?
Not in the way it was for them, no, because I'm a writer, I'm a journalist. I have the luxury, if I'm in combat, I can leave. Soldier doesn't have that option. So he had what the psychiatrists in the First World War called the fight or flight syndrome. So fight, which is your duty, or flight, which is your normal human reaction to your life being threatened. Well, I didn't have fight or flight, it would just be flight. And so that relieves a lot of the mental pressure. One witnesses human suffering, including among one's friends, but it's not the same as suffering it yourself.
Right.
So it's not as bad.
Right.
But I imagine, I have journalist friends who have been impacted very, very severely by too much war coverage or being in war and losing close friends beside them. And that's I've never lost a close friend beside me, so it hasn't hit me as bad.
It's not changed you in any way? One.
Well, I mean, my life has made me what I am. That's part of my life. But whether it's changed me, I don't know, because I don't know what a different life would have been.
Right. Right. And can you tell me some incident that you've witnessed? My story is on war writing, actually. So some incident that you've witnessed while reporting war that really impacted you, changed your thinking. Some incident, some site, or something that really impacted you while reporting war.
Look, most of the horrible things that I've seen, particularly in Beirut and Sarajevo, are things that I can still have nightmares about. They're still things that have affected me, but they didn't affect me the way they affected the Lebanese, the Palestinians, and the Bosnians. Their lives were really their whole civilization was being destroyed. So I didn't have that. I was an observer, but even the observer feels for the people he's observing. I remember in August of 1976, the Christian phalangist forces surrounded a Palestinian refugee camp called Tarazata. And that went on for weeks and weeks, starving the people out, a bit like what the Israelis are doing in Gaza now. And there were attempts by the Red Cross to negotiate ceasefires. The Palestinian commandos under Yasser Arafat managed to sneak out. And when they left, the people there without armed protection, the Christian forces went in and massacred them. And because it was all very haphazard, they couldn't stop me from going, and I went in with another journalist called Doyle McManus, and we witnessed it not after it happened, but as it was happening. And what I saw, women, children, men being cut down, people being killed and then driven over by cars and tanks, and their bodies like thin as paper on the pavement, or bulldozers scooping up the bodies of children and dumping them in pits. This was, I say, it lowered my previous opinion of humanity, not just Christians or particularly people of Lebanon, because these things happen in every war. Rape happens in every war. Mass murder happens in every war. There's no such thing as a clean war. War is a crime. The war causes other crime. So that my realization was that people you think of as being very decent can go to the most bestial levels when all restraints are taken away.
Right. And in such a circumstance, what gives you hope? What gives you hope that hoping when you've seen such horrible sights?
I don't have any. I mean, there are people who are hopeful who should give me hope, and people who stand up against it, who oppose it, who demonstrate, who sometimes, I mean, some young Israeli soldiers now are going to prison rather than serving in Gaza. They give me hope that there's some decency, but it doesn't give me hope that things will change.
You don't think things will change?
No, they get worse.
Right. And how is war today in Israel and in Ukraine compared to the wars that you have covered in China? How has it changed?
So in Israel, you have a massive modern army fighting basically an unarmed population. So that's hardly even a war. It's a massacre. In Ukraine, you have a modern former Soviet army invading a neighboring country, but that country can fight back. So it's more of an equal contest. But it doesn't mean that what the Russians are doing is right. That's not right to invade your neighbor. It's not right for the Israelis to massacre 25,000 people in Gaza and destroy their homes and talk about driving them all out and putting Israeli settlements there. These things are not moral, they're not legal, but they happen.
What's the price you had to pay in your personal life when you spent so much of your time in war? And, have you had to pay any price in your personal life?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Have you got any insights about human nature or humanity after covering the war?
Just what I told you, that men are capable of any horrible crime. And some people are capable of great courage in the face of it.
Any other insights after covering wars? Any insights that you have? What's the
Don't do it.
biggest learning you've had since covering war? Biggest learning lessons you've learned?
I'm not a teacher. I don't do lessons. I've had the experience. I write about it, but I don't think I'm required to draw lessons. I wish I could for your benefit, but I never have.
First drew you to war reporting?
Nothing. I was doing a master's degree in philosophy in Lebanon in 1972 and 73. In 1973, what was called the October War broke out. Israel had occupied parts of Egypt and Syria in 1967. The Syrian and Egyptian armies went into those areas to try and take them back. That was called the October War. I was studying in Beirut doing my master's in philosophy when I received a request from Peter Jennings, who was the ABC News bureau chief there, to come and work in the ABC office and start doing some journalism. And so that got me involved in journalism and during a war. So I went to Syria, I went to Egypt. I discovered it was very interesting, very exciting. I got to go all over the world, meet fascinating people, whether you were leaders or poets or aid workers or human rights activists, people I would not have met if I just stayed in academia and taught, or if I just become a lawyer, which was another thing I had. So it was something I was drawn to, not because I was interested in war, or I wasn't interested in journalism. It happened, and then I saw that it could expand my horizons.
Right. What do you like to do in between assignments? What are your hobbies? What do you like to do other than?
I don't have hobbies. I like to write. I write when I'm working. I write 7 days a week. I don't like taking holidays. I love my work. If I have time not working, I see my children, my grandchildren. I don't play tennis. I don't ski. I don't fly airplanes. I occasionally play cards. But I think that's about it.
Last question. Is it very difficult to write about a war that happened decades ago while collecting, in terms of information you gather and research-wise, is it difficult to get classified information? Research, like your book in World War I, was it difficult to get information?
It's not that difficult. I mean, there are gaps, of course, because not everything was written down. So you wonder what happened between, say, two letters. If you don't, it's impossible to find out. If you're a novelist, you can fill that in yourself in an imaginative way. But it's not No, it's not that difficult. It's sometimes, if you're writing about something a little bit closer to the present, documents will be redacted or withheld by security agencies. I remember I was writing a book about World War II, and I was trying to get the FBI files on a man called Charles Beddoes, an American businessman in France, who was arrested during the war. And those files were still classified 50 years after his death. And so I had to go do a flurry of lawsuits to try and get them. I got some of them. They were redacted, and there's no reason to protect people who long dead. But the FBI was protecting its own agents for some of the things that they've done that they shouldn't have done. So you then have to make a great effort to get a hold of things which legally you're entitled to, at least in America.